him or help her understand that there's so many doors out there. Let's pick a door and try it. If that door closes, let's try the next door.
Definitely, and I'm glad that you mentioned some of the companies that are around here, because you're right. Every time I turn around, there's new video game companies that are being created and doing a lot of really positive work in terms of developing some unique games and things of that nature. So it's always great to see. And they've had games of all sorts, everything from the sports games to the war and Captain Robert kind of games, so the various kinds of games that are out there. Matter of fact, who knows? Joe, are you still with me there as well?
I am.
Who knows? We might be ready to create a Bluegrass game. Hey, Jacoby, are you ready for a Bluegrass video game?
Well, there is probably a Bluegrass video game already out there.
Well, I will tell you what. I know from my days of the North Carolina Symphony that one of the most active areas of new compositions for classical music is video games. Symphony had a couple of concerts with video games live a couple of years over the last couple of years. So yeah, we've got some common ground, man. There's some stuff we can talk about.
You know what's crazy? Speaking of the symphony, there was an orchestra that did. You can actually get the. I think it's a CD that you can get on it, but there was an orchestra that did video game music, and they sold it. And the amount of money that they give these orchestras to do, like Halo was one of the biggest games that came out. There's a whole orchestra that plays Halo music.
Well, the video games live production, it mixes music from all of the greatest video games of the last 5-10 years with interactive screens and big screens. It's an amazing thing.
And speaking on that same thing, when not only music, but if you take it back to some of these games, not all of them, but if you try and follow the stories of some of these games, I mean, they're amazing. How people go crazy over one of the most controversial games out there, Grand Theft Auto.
What?
Grand Theft Auto has one of the greatest stories if you actually follow the story. There's Rockstar, the company. They have another game coming out. There is a part 2 to a game called Red Dead Redemption. Red Dead Redemption 2. Both are going to be part 2 hasn't come out yet, but it's going to be phenomenal because part 1 was probably one of the best westerns ever written. I mean, the storyline, if you follow it, it was done so well. So I mean, video games are just stuck in that mind that it's a kid's thing.
No, I can tell you that it's definitely an adult thing. Because my brother is definitely a video game person. He actually used to play, what's the game, Call of Arms. He would play that regularly. And actually a friend of his was living, I believe, in the Pennsylvania, Philadelphia area, somewhere up north, and wound up moving down here. So he actually lives in one of our Wake County suburbs now. But part of the reason they had connected through video games before he even moved down here. I think there were some job opportunities and some other things that led him to move down here. But they had built a friendship through video games and competing against each other even before the move happened. So you're right, it can even be a tool for people bonding and connecting with each other, even on friendship level. So I've even seen that with all kinds of video games that have existed out there. So you hear these kinds of stories on a regular basis where people use the video games as part of their socialization with each other. So definitely you see that on a regular basis. I mean, even though it's not a video game, I'm into fantasy football, and that's along the same lines of video games where people are using that as a tool to connect with each other. So I can definitely relate to what you're saying, Jacoby. Now, I do have to teach you about something, and I'm curious and I'm just saying this in a cheesy kind of way, because one of the things that I know in improv, and we talked about this movie earlier, there's a certain movie that is known as a bluegrass movie, but you folks in improv use it as fodder on a regular basis. Because earlier today, Joe mentioned Deliverance, and I know that a lot of times Deliverance winds up being used as fodder by improv people.
It is. I mean, so improv. Okay, I've done improv for 18 years. I don't know everything about it. I always, tell everyone. I mean, that I mean, anybody who even says, "Oh, well, you did a good job," no, I thank you, but I'm still a novice. I'm still trying to learn it. There's so much to it. But from what I've learned from improv is that it's exaggerated reality. That's all it is. You take an exaggerated character, put them in an exaggerated situation, and have that exaggerated situation in an exaggerated world. The key word is exaggerated. Deliverance was that. Everything about every character in Deliverance was way over the top. And it just fit in that mold, so it made perfect fodder for everything you do in improv. Any country thing you do is going to pull that stereotype about country. And Deliverance, Children of the Corn, that's another one. Yeah, that's all it is. But yeah.
So, and that's one of the things that it seems that, coming back to your improv kind of life, is it seems that improv definitely looks at society, but it looks at it, as you put it, from an exaggerated standpoint. Now, sometimes some people that I guess are part of the improv audience, they sometimes feel that the improv performers are sometimes stereotyping. Do you think that that's a fair complaint that people have? I know that even came up to some degree with some of what was going on with DSI and other stuff in the past, but there's a feeling that sometimes improv doesn't quite do the same thing as stand-up in terms of being fair to the audience members. But I don't know that I necessarily believe that, but I just want to know what your thoughts on that are.
Well, improv is just like stand-up in that sense. Any performance, you got to find that little niche that makes it different. So if you're going to do a character, if that character has a twitch, you've got to focus on that twitch to make sure that everybody knows that this character is somebody. Because if it's their blank character, it's a blank canvas, you're not really going to do anything or show anybody who that character is. It's the same thing with stand-up. All the jokes that Kevin Hart talks about, those are exaggerated situations. He takes the little key points about his father, his uncle, or his mother, or whomever, and then stretches those to a point that is very memorable. I mean, some of those things didn't happen in his life in the way that he's portraying them. They did, but they didn't because they're exaggerated. It's the same thing with improv. So, yes, every form of acting takes any little bitty stereotype, but they kind of paint it to where it's not offensive. So you're not going down that road, but you make it relatable because the best comedy is always comedy derived from real life. So you've got to just take that real life situation and you push it to a point where, okay, it's still believable. Because you got to, the whole thing about acting and improv and stand up, you've got to paint a picture that is believable. You've got to take people to a state of where this world is real. It's suspension of disbelief. Because if they don't believe it, they'll never follow you, especially on improv. It's the same thing with video games. If your character can only jump 10 feet the whole game, but then gets to the end and can jump 20, the game is screwed up. If in improv, if your character is a German guy that speaks fluent French but sounds like he's in the country the whole way, but then pops up at the end, he's Italian, that just killed the whole scene. If you're a female, if you're playing a female and you're walking around the whole time being that female, but then you get upset that nobody's laughing at your joke and you switch over and, hey, now I'm male in the scene because I want to be male because people can see me now. That killed the whole scene. So, yeah, yes. To get back to the point, yeah, improv, just like stand-up, we take those stereotypes and you kind of water them down to a point where you build a character around that stereotype or whatever stands out from whatever individual or group of individuals that you want to make sure that people understand that, okay, well, in this scene, you notice I'm a guy from the 1950s that is in Brooklyn. rather than, hey, let me come out, I'm a country guy. Well, now the whole scene is completely different. I'm not the guy from Brooklyn.
So just out of curiosity, now you mentioned that you have an interest of creating your own video game. Now, I know you don't want to give the theme away, but what kind of game are you looking at creating, and what can people do if they're listening to help you make this game a reality?
Well, I mean, the game ideas, I've got tons of them, but I put them all on the back burner. I mean, I love stories. I love being able to take people in that state of suspension of disbelief and take them on a fantasy world and take them to an arena where this is cool and have them do something that they don't do in their real lives. I mean, there's tons of game ideas that I have. But right now, my main focus is if I can get this esports thing going, then I can begin to, build a game with one of the kids that comes through the pipeline. Hey, look, that'd be cool. Because the kid will say, hey. So yeah, that's where my focus lies. That's why I put, trying to build one. Even though I'm still writing ideas down, my focus is steadily trying to bring esports to the area. And that's where I'm hoping that I can garner a lot of support and get that going.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, and by the way, we've done it before on the show, but we have to give a major shout out to the organization that you work for, the Durham Bulls, because they are the AAA champions of 2017. So I don't know that everybody expected them to do as well as they did, but they definitely came out and won what I believe is their second title in terms of they've been.
It is the second AAA championship that we've won. Charlie Montoya won the first one. Jared Sandberg has now won the second.
Well, I can speak proud as a former Durham resident. I never let the Bulls go, even when I moved to Raleigh. So congratulations to the Bulls. So, fellas, I'm gonna get on to the next thing and do whatever she tells me to do. So, thanks for having me. Enjoyed our conversation very much.
And I enjoyed having you, Joe, and definitely anytime you feel like calling in anytime you feel like joining this conversation or letting folks know what you're doing in the bluegrass world or just in the cultural world, you are always welcome to pop in. We're here every Monday from 7 to 9, and I'm glad that you let folks know how to get in touch with you as well. So always great to talk to you, Joe.
Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Hey, Val.
Okay. Bye.
See if Val is still online. Is Val still on the line, Dean?
No, she's gone.
All right. Well, I was going to ask her if her teenage daughter was a video game person as well. That's what I was curious about. But, yeah,
okay.
Jatopi has definitely been involved for a while and doing a lot of great things. So, as you can tell, he's a master of many things, and I've actually had the pleasure of even seeing Jatopi do improv in the most unlikely of places. I mean, he's done it definitely as part of his Bulls work with what he does there, and then he's even done it on Christmas Parade. So he's definitely a master of showing folks that he is a very talented individual. So I'm glad that Jatopi called in, and I know that he's a great person that's going to have this masterful video game one day. But I'm just looking forward to being able to play on my I've got to actually get either a PS4 or one of the other platforms, because I don't have any of that right now. Just got a regular TV. But Dean's probably got all that stuff. Do you have that stuff, Dean?
Nah, bro, I haven't played a video game in about 11 years, so it's been a while. I probably would not fare well now playing the games, because the last console system I played was like a PlayStation 2. So I'm already 2 PlayStations behind,
Actually, it's interesting to tell me. We actually had this conversation on the bus line at a bus stop earlier this weekend, or this past weekend. At a friend's house, we were talking about the fact that the game was the tournament was going on, and when we talked about that fact, we were saying that the kids would probably whoop us because, I'm 55. This guy I was talking to he might have even been older. He might have been 16. He was sitting there going like, he remembered Pong. Like, you remember that as the early video game, and Centipede, and he was like, those kids would have schooled us so bad it wouldn't have been funny. So I was wondering what the age range of the contestants were.
Oh, the age went from, we had kids that were 5 years old all the way up to adults that were roughly about 50. So video games,